We have two clients right now. One of them has like 36 um, stores.
Mm-hmm.
We are working with them right now, and we are running a demo with the most important company in Mexico, that is Pemex. We're trying to sell them through the Pemex procurement, that is a branch in Houston. We are as Mexicans, we have an American company selling to an American branch for a Mexican company. So it's kind of fun, but we are working very hard and to get that deal closed.
Got it. Well, so let's do this. We'll talk more about that. But the main thing that I want y'all to see about that as an example, what David's talking about, I'm noticing as well about this. Hey, by going over here, we can actually sell back over to here to sell over to there. We, the collective group of, Tech Ranch entrepreneurs, should be exploiting that like mad. And I'll be telling you about, I think it'd be interesting for you to see some of the different examples about what's happening along those lines. As an example, since Marcelo's on, I was telling Marcelo's about Marcelo's company to one of our large innovation opportunities because of what they do with food processing. And, it's like, I actually even brought up David Rodriguez and 3D Thea because of the way you're using computer vision. And the computer, this group is concerned with manufacturing lines and also, but retail. And part of the thing about it is if someone walks in with a gun to a retail location, that's actually kind of a problem. They were actually, the example they gave me, by the way, David, was they were worried about if someone spills something on aisle 3 and there ends up being an accident from that, about how devastating that is to the business. And it's funny to think if it's even worse if someone walks in with a gun, right? So it's a really apropos there about what you're talking about.
Actually, Kevin, the proposal we're working for Pemex kind of handles both problems: the gun problem and the industrial security issues, because we can identify. For example, if an employee is in the production line where oil and gas are like very flammable products, and they have the cell phone in their hands, they can cause an accident. Actually, the last year here in Cadereyta, the Pemex production plant exploded because some guy had their cell phone in the pocket of the shirt, and it started spark and it blew it away.
Yeah, that will make for a pretty hard day. Sorry. Well, so let's talk about this then. Let me switch the gears then. On the lean startup areas, there might be some of you that actually don't know exactly where you're at. So this is a feedback for me that part of the thing I think we should be doing is increasing our time around the pedagogical model, the curriculum that we have available, so that we can actually do that. Some of that we'll do where there'll be videos available to you and you can just log in and go grab it, whatever you'd like. Some of it is we'll actually do during this course, during this time together, just because I recognize that there's a need there. Next week, I think, just to do a quick side thing, I think, Kristen, we have Matt Cohen speaking about funding. So one of my friends and colleagues, Matt Cohen, who is a former venture partner at G51 Ventures, then he was a successful entrepreneur with a company called OneSpot. And then he's now doing high-end AI consulting. He'll be available to us next week. There will be a simultaneous Russian translation. We won't do the simultaneous Russian translation in the channel like what happened last time. Our vendor,
consecutive.
Yeah, our vendor of what we had last time is not what's going to happen next week, just to be very clear, because I'd like to make sure we recognize that things weren't as fast as we wanted them to be with the consecutive, where, it's like English, Russian, English, Russian. I mentioned it to Svetlana and to Tatiana really quick that we'd like to get more participation from other Russians and Ukrainians. It can be anywhere across across the, do you say the former Soviet Union? Like anywhere, I would love to just get anyone else that would like to participate as part of that as well. But back to everybody, the specific things, since there is I know a growing concern about investment. Matt is very astute about the investment world. And right now, since I see several of y'all that have artificial intelligence and machine learning is part of your work, he actually he's now consulting in a very high-end AI consulting firm. So he would be a good person to ask about, like, he's got a really big brain. He's one of my favorite friends to talk to as well. So he'll be very astute about, funding and how it will be tied into AI and stuff like that. So like Svetlana, I know that's you. David Rodriguez, I know that's you. Francisco, I'm sure that ties into a little bit of what you're up to. Marcelo, it ties into what you're up to as well. So that's just a little shout out for next time. Jetty, you said, are you doing AI type of stuff as well?
Well, we're setting up the foundation, focusing on setting up the foundation. But yeah, I mean, end applications are absolutely going to incorporate AI. And you talk about, keeping people on the right track, especially during a time when overdoses are skyrocketing, for substance use and addiction. AI can really, really help with keeping everybody in the loop, making sense of the data, and being able to provide timely, intervention and update for people who are struggling. I mean, yeah, that's absolutely a part of our strategy. But right now, we're just focusing on setting up the foundations for that.
Got it. Well, we'll be talking about that more. Mental health issues have definitely gone up. I think everyone's seen this across the world, and so one of the things that I'll just mention to Jetty and just to everyone in general. We're going to have a mental health subgroup, just like we're going to do in several different, like some of you guys are working on food security, some of you are working on physical security. Adriana is going to share about her project and a little bit about just like financial security, what she's doing in Guatemala. I bring this up because part of what, since Cindy's represented, Cindy is the executive director of the nonprofit. She is, in fact, in a little bit, Cindy, I'd like you to pipe up and just say something about this, but we have a subcommittee now working on grants, and Emmanuel and Svetlana, y'all both know that we've, done a little bit around the Pandemic Tech Fellowship. I think Emmanuel is actually submitting his panel today, which is cool. And then Svetlana said, given that I know that you're now back in the game concerning the wet lung issues, I'm going to be talking to Andrew within the next 24 hours again about that. Andrew, by the way, is Dr. Andrew Nerlinger, who is the director of the Pandemic Tech Accelerator. There's never been a better time to explain the power of relationships that we've had over the last, 4 years now? Other than in the middle of a pandemic, you see what's the power of Tech Ranch being tied to an accelerator around pandemics. And we implement all the programs for them, by the way. I mentioned that because I want you all to see about how I recognize that one of the things that's happened is that you haven't gotten to see the power of the network because I'm not telling you stories about it. And because I'm not telling you stories about it, you don't actually exercise it. Svetlana's got a little bit of this, Svetlana, who's in, she's in Tumen, which is in Siberia, and Emmanuel in Nigeria. They're getting to see it because but there's absolutely no reason that we wouldn't do this with everyone that I can see, plus all the other venture outfitter entrepreneurs that are in here. And so part of that will look like building more relationships into other accelerators. In the case of the mental health case, it looks like we're going to actually be setting up one. Not me directly, but a third party. So that's coming. The other thing, just to tie a nice little bow around that, if you see a grant that your organization in itself couldn't go after, but if you had the right partners around you, you could, we're really interested in talking to you about it. And Cindy would actually be a good person to talk to. Cindy, are you available where you can just say a few things? She doesn't have a camera on her computer, but she's actually in charge of the nonprofit, and she's also in charge of the Russia Bridge that we're building. Go ahead, Cindy.
Well, I just wanted to I guess follow up on what Kevin just mentioned. We are identifying opportunities where we can apply for these grants using y'all's technologies. So again, if you do feel like you're finding opportunities for funding but needing to partner, then we will definitely step in that place. What I would like to ask all of you guys to be thinking about is, as we're identifying these opportunities, I'd like for you guys to be assembling your materials, getting together any kind of marketing materials that you can, basically constructing like a marketing presentation so that we have more material to get these opportunities shored up for you guys. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me, Cindy@techranchaustin.com, and we can go from there. But otherwise, know that we are already looking at opportunities, and we do need you guys to help us with that as well. So if you do see something, let us know, and we'll team up with you guys.
Yeah, and so a lot of the point of contact is, like, if you don't remember how to get a hold of Cindy, do this. You can reach out to me, but just remind me just to introduce you to Cindy. One of the things you'll notice, especially for those of you all that have been interacting with me more than at any other time in the history of Tech Ranch, I'm getting the team involved. We have a much larger team. We're going to hear from, in the coming weeks, we'll hear from Courtney, who's a former director level person from VMware and Dell. So she's a powerhouse. We're going to hear from Teresa, who's one of her colleagues at VMware as well. They're actually driving a whole new part of Tech Ranch that I used to drive myself, and it's kind of great. So in this case of Cindy actually is building a group of staff and volunteers over here to go after that. The key thing, though, is many times we don't see the opportunity that you might see. Like Adriana, as an example, brought a grant to the Tech Ranch. Now, we didn't get it, but we're going to apply for it again and go after other ones as well. So know that in each one of the cases, there's opportunities about that. Three more things, just going down my list. Sorry, I didn't put together a slide deck to actually go over this. I got a question for you. Prosperity. I would love to actually have each one of you say in a sentence about how your company contributes to prosperity. Who'd like to start? I can call you guys if you want, but David Potes, you're my guinea pig a lot of times, so you go first.
Hey guys, so prosperity in the sense of social. How can I explain that? What do you mean by prosperity?
So that's a good question. The prosperity about, well, a lot of times people talk about like right now coming out of the coronavirus times. The 22 million people lost their jobs in the United States. It's an interesting time, right? It's not a pleasant time by any means, and I don't mean to. It's worse in other countries. I know that in Mexico, some of the stories I've heard, it's really rough. Like, it's really rough with what's happening in other countries that don't have the resources. It's really rough. And so the thing that Courtney was actually pushing me really hard to say, hey, Kevin, what is the essence of what this network is supposed to be about? What binds us together? And I started looking at it and I started thinking, it's not about technology. It's not about, Tech Ranch was named the social impact, one in the top 3 social impact incubators in the US. But as we stepped back and actually looked at how we could do this globally, I started thinking, what is this about? I used to build trading systems for Fidelity Investments, and I built I built an e-commerce vision for Dell and made a bunch of money on that. But then it didn't make sense to just keep on doing that type of stuff. It made sense to do something that was more like how can we actually use that same capability to change more lives. And one of the things that I know about each one of the people that I see represented in the you know on the Zoom is that you're all working about something that actually improves people's lives. Everyone here is working on something that improves people's lives. So prosperity, if we do our jobs right as entrepreneurs, and then we get a bunch of other entrepreneurs involved, the really wild thing about it is I think that we could actually get to the point that, you know, it's my vision that we could actually bring prosperity to everybody in the world. I don't mean riches. I don't mean like, you know, a crazy levels of wealth, but I mean a standard of living that is just, you know, prosperous. It's like you're able to take care of all the things you need. You got good health, you've got good security. I mean, I was talking about it in terms of biosecurity, food security, physical security, you know, mental security. All the basics are actually covered, which many times in many of our countries, even in, you know, the richest country in the whole freaking world, it's not there, especially right now. And the thing that actually I think is interesting is the virus has actually brought to light how the lack of prosperity in this country and then everywhere else as well. But it's really like it's now showing its ugly face that there's no safety net, there's no just basic taking care of people that you know, like that. So how do we actually shift that? I'm making up the word as prosperity. So David, what do you think? I don't know. That was a long-winded answer to your question.
No, thank you.
Kevin.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
So,
Adriana, go ahead. Well, wait, actually, hold on a second. Let's see what David says.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. So I'll be quick. I think that basically one of the things, and continuing with what you said about how the coronavirus has evidenced a lack of attention in the patients beyond the doors of the hospital or the doors of the clinic. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. So one of the things that, and this is purely from my perspective, from what we do, is that we're trying to make it easier for patients to access health, plain and simple. And one of the things we're still working on is not just to answer that in a way of a, you know, digitally facilitating the channels to access health in terms of, you know, communicating with a doctor and telemedicine, things like that. But we also want to expand into the, how can we make it easier for them to pay, to create financial solutions for health. Being one of the main problems both here in Mexico and in the US, especially in Mexico, we have the highest out-of-pocket payment in health in all of the OECD countries. So we've been exploring a lot of ideas how we can make it cheaper. Actually, I don't know if I told you this before, but my dad is kind of the gurus in the private healthcare system here in Mexico. And he always uses this phrase of, and I don't know, I know this one of the things that are not very common in the US to say, but trying to socialize the private medicine in the sense how to make it more accessible. How can we make private medicine more accessible for you know, for all the population? And because just to give you really quick numbers, here in Mexico, only 7% of the population have an insurance, have some type of private healthcare insurance. The rest, either they have some type of social insurance that is not very good, and a large part of the population actually don't have any coverage. So, and also, you know, 50% of the people that have social coverage or social insurance, they don't use social, you know, they don't use the public hospitals. So that's why Mexico has one of the highest out-of-pocket expenditures from all of the OECD countries. So to wrap up, we're trying to make it more accessible, both in the patient journey. As I've said before in my pitches, that the patient journey doesn't only affect patients, it also affects healthcare providers. And and one of the things we're working on, again, repeating myself, just to come up with financial solutions for patients to make it easier for them to pay for their healthcare.
Well, so that's a good example. Like just making healthcare accessible. That's part of prosperity, right? And that alone, that key thing. What I want everyone to be doing. Sorry, I went ahead. I don't know if you noticed. I'm now standing. I'm like, I get excited about this. I can't sit in the seat. So the good thing is I have a standing desk. And I don't know. I'm like I'm going a little crazy because I've been in this this second bedroom in the house for a long time. I'm sure you're all going crazy. But the thing about it is the thing I get excited about, right, is exactly what David's talking about. But each one of you has some contribution to prosperity. The reason I ask, I'd love to hear from, one or two more people. I don't want to spend a lot of time on during this call about this is I'm going to be launching a podcast called Transformational Entrepreneurship. What is the transformational entrepreneur? It's the entrepreneur that actually chooses to step into transforming the world. It's a pain in the ass, isn't it? Everyone nod their heads. It's a pain in the ass. Yeah, it's like I see the smiles and all that sort of stuff. It's a pain in the ass. But the thing about it is, it's a pain in the ass because you're cutting against industries that don't necessarily want to change. Healthcare is a good example. David Potos is working on healthcare. Healthcare is a good example. In the United States, who makes the most money? Well, first, the weapons manufacturers. Second, the financial industry. Third, healthcare. Healthcare doesn't want to change that. Healthcare doesn't necessarily want to change like their profit margins. There's some reason, and it might be different in y'all's countries, but I know in this country it's like, and so yeah, it's a pain in the ass. But how do you actually take on being a transformational entrepreneur? I mean, that's what I think of each one of you is. It's one of the reasons I like coming to these meetings, is because I get to see you guys on the front lines of that. Now I'm on the front lines with you guys. The thing that I'd actually like to do is, one of the things that I'm going to personally do, and you'll see it across the staff, especially with the conversations that Cindy, Courtney, and Teresa are driving. Kristen's already done this because I can tell you about, like, it showed up in her interview, part of her personal story, and at some point we'll get her to tell her personal story about that as well. But don't worry, I'm not putting you on the spot today. But the whole idea about this is I want you all to start framing up your conversations about your ventures in terms of the word prosperity. Now, it might be a different word for you. It might be impact or something like that. Impact doesn't necessarily always have the same words. And when you say social impact in the United States, social impact, it sounds like you're a socialist, and woo, that's bad, really bad. And so, it's like socialism and people run away. It's whatever. I'm an entrepreneur, so I believe in capitalism, to be very clear. But the truth is that there is something else that's coming, that I think we actually have a chance to do. And I want to, for those of y'all that actually took the class, I know that David Rodriguez is smiling because he remembers us talking about sex and violence in your elevator pitch. Anyone that was in my elevator pitch sessions, I talk about sex and violence. You have to bring sex or violence into your elevator pitch. Well, we have enough violence in the streets right now. Hopefully it doesn't break out into blood. I think in some countries it's about to. Because I'm paying attention to like what's happening in the Caribbean right now is about to be a mess. It's about to be a big mess. People are starving there, and they're going to pick up arms if we don't figure out how to solve that problem. Back to prosperity. The thing I'd like you to be thinking about is that I see Jetty has a sentence to say about prosperity. Jetty, what do you want to say about prosperity?
Making sure I wasn't muted. Yeah, so in a sentence, this one's pretty easy. So in a sentence, drug and alcohol use alone in the United States alone costs $1.45 trillion in economic loss and societal harm, most of which comes in direct economic loss and societal harm through quality of life adjustment. When you talk about people not being able to even hold down a high-paying job, but a functional job in general, that's sort of the starting point and where we focus on with our technology is plugging the gap when people leave treatment and making that transition back into gainful employment and sustainable quality of life, instead of falling back into the cycle, falling out of the loop of engagement, and thus racking up costs. And we help to reset that contribution back to society.
That's perfect. Yeah, quality of life issues alone, especially right now when people are losing their minds. Alcohol consumption in Texas is at an all-time high. Now, I have been making a margarita or two myself every evening. My bartending skills have gone up, but the downside of that is that if it goes too far, obviously it has like a major impact. And part of the thing, yeah, Jetty's platform is contributing to prosperity in that part of what he and his team are actually doing is helping people that are actually in recovery stay in recovery so they don't like slide even farther down the path. But that's great. Let me actually see, is there anyone else? Adriana, I think I said Adriana raised her hand. I was just going to say, Adriana, would you like to say something as well?
Yeah, hi everyone. You know more about my work, Kevin, but I think, of course, I'm a directly relationship with prosperity, but that's a term I use a lot because since, I work a lot with the US government and through the local embassy and the US Department of State. But yeah, I see prosperity as helping others to thrive. This kind of has a direct relationship with my personal experience because I have achieved many things and I have done many things because there's people connecting and giving opportunities to people like me that maybe only has dreams and has it cares about other people. It's not natural. It's funny. I was talking today with someone in the US and saying it's crazy that people is actually talking about that if it's fair that people die for economy, right? So
yeah, I know there's something
and
fundamentally broken when an economy, when it's a choice between living and making a buck, right? There's something screwed up about that. Totally. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's amazing that in kind of way we're already living that every day. The thing is that coronavirus brought it to sight, like David said, because many people, it's like if you go to work, you get here in Guatemala, at least with the gangs, you have the risk of being mugged or kidnapped or something by a gang if you live in the bad side of the city. And that shortens the opportunities for you because you cannot go to work, you cannot go to study at certain hours. And that's why I focus on mixing technology with education, but mostly financial education, and giving people options.
So we're going to hear from Adriana.
Yeah.
She at the end of this. If we're going to hear more about her business.
Yeah, sorry, it took long.
No, it's okay. No problem. What I want to do is I want to set a context at the end of our session. I said, hey, I want to hear your pitch, and maybe a few other people will actually want to hear the newest pitch about what she's up to. But for right now, just before, a few people might need to leave before we actually enter into that section. Tell me your elevator pitch. What is your elevator pitch so that everyone has the context about, well, what is this, where is this woman at and what is she working on? Tell us a little bit of the short and sweet elevator pitch.
I'm working on it, but in general is bringing technology to give people options. Basically, that will be the in one phrase, that bringing people opportunities through technology.
So Adriana is one of the stories she told me about in the past, that she's working with 40 women that have micro enterprises that have different types of, businesses of, just, maybe handcraft type of businesses or making food or stuff like that. And she's actually helping the unbanked get into the system. She's actually building a bank too. And we're going to hear about that in a little while, in a little bit. If you want to stick around, you can. I'll be sticking around just because I want to be able to review her pitch, but I thought it'd be fun to actually have everyone be able to listen in from that standpoint. So yeah, and Adriana, again, just like all of y'all, is on the front lines working with, some of the poorest of the poor, but giving them alternatives and, working with the unbanked, people who can't get bank accounts, and actually doing things with them and giving them options, creating jobs there, creating jobs by creating entrepreneurs, which is great. So thank you for sharing, Adriana. Anyone else really quick want to say how they're contributing to prosperity? And, part of it is, with your permission, I'm going to use part of what you say on a video that I cut to actually, share with the world. So anyone? Going once, going twice. Oh, yeah, Marcelo, go ahead.
Hi, hello everyone. I was thinking on your question, and I think in my case, since we focus more on the industry or manufacturing sector, we think, companies will have to come back to business as usual. It's not going to be as usual, but they're going to have to come back and continue their manufacturing process. So what we're going to help, or what we're doing, is helping companies continue their business by giving them tools to remotely control some of the machines, or having information on the processes, so that they don't have to actually be there in the facility. That's one of the things that we're doing, but also we're focusing on prevention, on security issues, in terms of making sure that that people respect the distance that they have to, the distance that they don't have to prevent any contagious outbreak. We can do that also by tracking people, and also making sure that they can come back to a more safer environment to continue their work, by using some types of technologies like IoT, to have some types of sensors. We can use some gadgets to make sure that they stay out of any possible insecurity in the workforce.
That makes sense. Well, yeah, staying out of harm's way in a lot of different ways, and as well as just one of the projects that we've been talking about between TechRanch and Kevin and Marcelo, TechRanch and Hesta Labs, is applying those type of tools into food production, right? And food, it's if you want to create food security, one of the things that he's doing actually drives that. So, all right, so we kind of have like some ideas. Part of it is, I just want to make sure that you hear that part of the thing that we're going to be talking about as we go after these grants, which think of as, instead of going after investor, going after non-dilutive funds, right? Focused on the word prosperity and how that actually, the work that we're doing together contributes to that. Driving, the technologies and the products that you guys are building as part of the support of that. And doing media to bring more attention to you guys. It's going to be fairly humble beginnings. If you've seen some of my old videos, we're going to do better than that. Not that they were bad. They just weren't regular. We're going to be doing better than that. But part of what I'm excited about is to be able to do that more. And each one of you, if you would like to be on an interview slot, I'd like to have you be on an interview slot. I've already done this with some of you guys in the past. It's stuff like this that is that TechRanch can do, which is literally low cost for everyone involved, But then as an example, like BioCab as an example is one of our success stories. It's, it's taking off now. BioCab was in the Mexican bridge with David and Jorge and Francisco. The innovation bridge that we've talked about in the past. And part of what's happening there is, through some of the exposure we've been able to bring to him, we've been now getting him into the government at the state of Texas and the state of Oklahoma, which then creates an interesting way to, walk in the door. BioCab has non-toxic sanitizers that are very useful against a lot of the sanitizers that have been used to take on the virus are toxic. And the problem is you have to go clean up the place with the toxic cleaner, and then you have to clean up the toxic cleaner. Whereas they can use their non-toxic alternative. It's non-toxic to humans, but very toxic to the virus. So, all right, well, we talked about the core program. We talked about prosperity. We talked about transformational entrepreneurship and what's going to come out of that with regards to our work together. I'd like to go ahead and have Adriana pitch. I just want to ask before I do that, because I know some of y'all might need to drop out. There will be a lot more stuff that's happening. Cindy is on point for the grants applications. We do have a volunteer who's on the front of that. He is a very technical guy. His name is Gerald. He'll be joining us in the future because he's actually working on his own ventures. He'll be joining us in the future in these calls. I'll just have to, I kind of expected to see him today, and I just need to make sure that I reach back out to him and say, hey, because part of what he's doing is he's volunteering some time to the community by going after those grant applications and looking for grants for everyone to then, and then, he'll get the benefit of being involved. In fact, for each one of y'all, I'm going to actually ask that's part of what you do. Some of you actually are paying cash to be a part of the group. Some of you are like grandfathered in from one of the other programs, like the Russia program or the Russia program, the Italy program, or something else. Part of what we want to start doing is building the contribution of what we're doing as a community, because it's all about driving prosperity. And that's one of the ways that, instead of this being a top-down organization, like you see from some of the other entrepreneur support programs, it'll be a different kind of animal. And I think that's the animal that's needed now to really drive prosperity. It's much more of a circle, not a triangle. If you think abstractly like I do. Any questions before we switch gears to the Adriana's presentation? David Potas, did you have your hand up? No. Okay, got it. Cool. Well, then what we'll do is for today, sorry that Dave Valentino wasn't able to join us, but I think that that gave me a little bit of space to tell you a little bit about where things are emerging. And if you have questions for me, let me know. I also would like to see more interaction, like I said. Right now, we're trying to, use Slack because many of you said, hey, Facebook, you don't necessarily want to do a lot of things on Facebook there. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. If you have feedback on how it could be better, I know that a lot of us still really like the WhatsApp channel because it seems like it gets solved, it gets used a bunch. One of the other good news, or two good news things that have happened in the last 2 weeks, and I'd like to make sure that in the future, I want you to bring your good news to this, because we'll have a little time where we actually say, hey, this is what happened. And I always love to see this on the Slack channel too. You guys should be bragging, because part of what success breeds success. It'd be great to actually share back and forth. Tech Ranch closed. We were awarded our first grant for going to the Czech Republic. So that happened earlier this week. Of course, we have to lift the travel ban, but I'll be going to the Czech Republic with a couple of the other Tech Ranch team, and we'll be building the beginnings of a bridge between here and the Czech Republic. And when I say here, I don't mean just Austin, Texas. I mean this network. into the Czech Republic. What's really cool about the city that we're working with is it's called Brno. It's a very, very impact focused city. Nothing against Prague, but the interesting thing is I reviewed 500 different entrepreneur startups from Brno, and it was really surprising. A very, very, very high percentage of those were focused on impact areas or prosperity type of drivers. And so the other thing that happened is Fidelium Technology, which is an education company, landed their next grant, their next SBIR grant. I'll be part of their team for NSF, that stands for the National Science Foundation. This is the type of funding that with the right structure, each one of you could actually go after. We just need to find the right type of positioning for how to do this. But they landed their next round, and I'm going to be on that team as well, as part of the connection into our group. And y'all seen Greg before because he's been on this group. We'll have him come back and talk about how he established that at some point in the future. So with that, unless there's another question, I'm going to switch over to, yeah, Kristen just posted into the chat, the Slack channel, which is techranch.slack.com. And please make sure that you're on it. If you're not on it, tell us right now during the course of this so that we can get you invited into it. Any questions? All right, we'll follow up with some other emails and a video or two about how to engage the Venture Outfitter program, the modules. But the thing that you'll see first will be an assessment, a self-assessment. Hey, where are the holes in my venture? And then essentially you can say, by filling out that assessment, you'll have information, we'll have information, and we can suggest to you, hey, use this module, or we'll go get this expert, It'll start to really lay out more of a path about how we can interact with each other. Okay, well then with that, Adriana, are you ready to pitch?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, cool.
My camera isn't working, so I'm gonna be just a picture, but I'm gonna share my screen. And before starting, I just wanted to tell you that this is a project that we started working a month ago in some way, thinking about helping people in the small businesses. So this is the first pitch. Any feedback is welcome, any question is welcome, because we are giving shape to this and we are working really fast. So we can, we appreciate all your comments.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, the product is called Near Me, Cashless Connections for Everyone. Here's a little bit about our logo. And here comes the situation. In Latin America, about 51% of the people doesn't have access to financial services. It's not in the radar of any kind of bank account or any kind of service like that. And in Central America specifically, for example, El Salvador has 90% people in the country without a bank account. In Guatemala is 60%, in Mexico is 56%, and even countries big as Brazil, 210 million people doesn't have any kind of business of financial services. And in Latin America in general, 135 million people, even though it has a bank account, pays his services in cash. And beside that, and that's a really close relation, 40% of Latin America live in poverty. Here in Guatemala, we are almost about 80% of people, between the people that live in extreme poverty and people that living in poverty. And 6 out of 10 people working informal economy. So their business are not registered. They mostly make cash connections. So again, Guatemala, 60%, 70% of the people works in formal economy. And that's what actually sustains the economy in Guatemala. And before the COVID, that's 70% of people were struggling, but managing to live day by day, right? Earning as what they need every day. But after the COVID-19, that changed. That can no longer be done because people that thought, okay, I don't need a phone, I don't need to have internet to make a living, that probably have changed forever. And they have no idea how to solve this and how to work this out. So this is a moment that having or not bank account, having or not online payments, and having access to deliver your goods to people, it really can change your life and for your family. And people doesn't have the answer to that because the current services take huge commissions, and you need to be registered. And now everywhere where you can register your business is closed, and also that takes a cost that many people doesn't have. That's why they don't open an account. They don't have the 100 queues they need to open a bank account, which is around $10. But that's what the money that they need to live another day. So that's why we created NearMe. NearMe is payment and logistic platform that provides a helping hand for small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And we try to disrupt the way financial services work in Latin America. How? We provide for small businesses the opportunity to list themselves for free in our platform. And we work in for areas, you know, that's why it's called NearMe, because you know what kind of businesses are around you. Chains like Walmart here are over their head because they cannot provide to everyone in the city, not to say everyone in the country, which is mostly rural. So, but people doesn't know who can deliver food and other services besides them, and that also accept online payment. So we provide that instantly for local business. An online store, people know they exist, and also we can provide delivery. For the customers, you can find goods at fair price because we don't take commission over the sales that the local businesses make, and we don't take commission on the delivery service. So people can find in a quick way what they need. And also we have a model, given the situation, in which the people that lost their jobs or have to close their business, they can be part of the delivery system in order to make a living permanently or temporarily during this crisis. We also have a food bank where people can donate food and make sure that it reaches the people in need, because of course you want to help people, but how do you find them? And people would not expose themselves to get the virus by going and giving food to many people, right? So through our delivery system, we help people with that. And we have also a financial system for people that, for example, it's Monday and they get paid to Friday, until Friday. So but they need to buy food today. So between the food bank and the local businesses, we create like a groceries cart, and it, for example, costs $200. The buyer has to put only $50, and through other people donations willing to help, they put the other two parts, so the business get paid because they cannot afford credit right now, but people is getting food, and that person pays on Friday while they buy on Monday. So that's but also a really cheap price, because we are mixing donations with products from other local businesses. And the idea is to not only to now keep things local and with less contact as possible, but also move the economy, like somebody said before, in the old way, because we now have to, this has changed the world in many different ways, and some of them are permanent. And we have to turn in the next few years to local businesses, to local economy, not only to survive, but also because it's more convenient. And our model can turn in, our model system can turn in financial services for small businesses. And that's why our main goal is eventually becoming a bank, the first digital bank in Central America, at least, we hope Latin America, and provide that access that people without the funding and without the means to access to them can get them in just a 5-minute sign up. So that's why we are taking, in some way, we are taking care of people during quarantine and social distancing, but also after. Thank you.
Yay. I really get excited about this venture. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for sharing about that. So I don't know. I don't want to spend a lot of time, since we're after 12, since we're
Okay.
over. I don't want to spend a lot of time on feedback, but if anyone has feedback for Adriana, will you type your email address into the chat?
It's pretty cool business model, but I really don't understand the business model. What monetizing like way?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. We're basically, for people to understand, like a PayPal, but it's with a cryptocurrency. So we turn cash into the cryptocurrency. Since it's our platform, so we charge for transactions. And for example, the idea, but it really more cheap way that for example Visa, MasterCard, and banks. So we give access to the system instantly. You sign up in 5 minutes as a buyer, as a vendor, or as a deliver service. You can sign up with bike, car, or bicycle to make deliveries. The routes are short, so you can make more deliveries, and you don't in certain area, so you can earn. We have calculated double of the minimum wage here in Guatemala, which is enough to make a decent living, at least provide food for your family and yourself. And that's how we earn money, by transactions and transferring. You can transfer money or send goods to people in other cities, and that's how we make money. That's why we don't charge the deliver people, and we don't charge the business, so they don't have to increase their prices for the things they're selling. And also we have a model in which we make like alliances. For example, someone sells eggs and everybody wants that because it's basic food, but not ice cream, because that could be a luxury for someone right now. So we mix a package of those things, and we reduce the price a little bit, like 10-20%. And we tell you, like, if you buy eggs and ice cream, you were only going to expend $10 in eggs. But if you buy eggs and ice cream, it costs you only $12. So that's the way that people can reactivate the economy, helping others to sell through our system.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense. So, in simple
Yeah,
words,
it's complicated. Sorry.
yeah, well, no, it's a bank that has a cryptocurrency that she's hosting things back and forth and taking a transaction fee. So it's pretty cool. All right, well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Like I said, I would like to start tearing into everyone's venture. Adriana posted her email address there. Adriana, the gentleman that I mentioned from 214 Alpha, I think it would be good to get y'all talking sometime soon. We'll follow up later today, and we can message back and forth about that and everything else. But yeah, good job. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
All right. So thank you to each one of y'all. We'll do this next week. Expect more interaction on the Slack channel, and it'd be great if each one of you would just post what's the one sentence or two sentences about your venture, and especially if you couch it in terms of prosperity. I think that would be great. So go ahead and do that. Let's start exercising the Slack channel. Make sure you can get to the Venture Outfitter channel. That would be great. And with that, we'll go ahead and close up for today. And good luck with your ventures. Let us know what you need. Let's make sure we take care of each other as we're working through this, and let's keep on presencing even stronger community among us, because this is how we'll actually push each other to the next level. Okay, I'll talk to you guys soon. Y'all take care. Have a good week.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.